belongs in a museum. So do you.
This video is brought to you by the wonderful Squarespace and is also full of spoilers. Remember when your heroes were allowed to stay frozen in time that you could revisit whenever you wanted to see them at their glorious best, maybe on VHS or DVD, or if you're one of those fancy types, Blu-ray. A time when they could stay handsome, brave, and not be losers. Well, wake up dinosaur, you're in the future. Now you don't have to wonder if Indiana Jones became an alcoholic loser. You get to see him as one. In the very average, ticking all the new Hollywood boxes, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is back in a Lucasfilm-produced rehash where Harrison returns to play one of his classic roles. But now that he's older, the only option is to make him a miserable loner who lost his wife after losing a son, who gets shown how it's really done by a young brunette woman with an English accent.
I bypassed the compressor.
Huh. That needs a father figure, but also doesn't need to be saved.
Say, rescue me.
No, it's not Han Solo, but I can see you could be mistaken as it's the exact same setup.
You know how to use one of those?
Yeah, you pull the trigger.
A little bit more to it than that.
Han Solo and Indiana Jones could arguably be the two most popular characters in film history, and when Kathleen Kennedy got her hands on them, she made them both losers. Yes, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is out, and we get to witness Indy not enjoying the swinging 60s. But before we get to the most recent timeline in Indy's story, we go back in time to young Indy at the tail end of the Second World War, where he finds himself on a train fighting Nazis while trying to recover stolen artifacts and rescue an old friend. I'm pretty sure YouTube doesn't like us using the word Nazi, so I'm going to call them the Germans in black. Sorry to my German friends. We know you ain't all bad and you do make amazing cars. The opening of this film is the best part of the movie. Yes, the de-aging isn't perfect, but we've come a long way since Tron 2.
Where are you now?
We get a very Indy chase with all the elements you want in an Indiana Jones film. Good pacing, tension, humour, and a lot of killing. Having us go back to old school Indy gives the filmmakers the freedom to just allow Indy to be Indy. They can ignore Kathleen Kennedy's input and cast choices, the two things that are going to drag down the rest of the film. In the opening, Indy is still Indiana Jones. It's so enjoyable that if they are going to keep abusing these old characters and bringing them back to the big screen, I would rather they just stuck to the de-aging for the whole film. But I'm guessing that wouldn't work because they'd still find a way to make him a failure. And they really should have gone to the trouble of de-aging his voice, because every time he spoke, it was old man Harrison coming out of that young face.
We got a lot of nice stuff.
It's odd they let the old man voice slide when the rest of the sound design was rock solid. They really do recapture the Indiana Jones punch feel, where everything from the punches to the guns and tanks feels like it has an extra bit of power behind it. The repeated blast from the train-mounted gun sounds enjoyably powerful. It's here that we get to meet Mads Mikkelsen's Jürgen Voller, who is also interested in stolen artifacts. Mads Mikkelsen just becomes characters. It's nearly impossible to not enjoy him when he's on screen, even when you have other people in the scene that are as pleasant to watch as a cat coughing up a furball. When we first meet Dr. Voller, there is the feeling that he may have the same archaeological passion as Indiana Jones, where being with the German marching dudes is just a means to an end in his quest to track down ancient treasure. A bit like René Belloc, who was awesome in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You know it's true.
Yes, it would have been better if Dr. Voller was a more complex character for Indy to go against. But sadly, as the film goes on, Dr. Voller gets more and more one-dimensional and turns out to be just bad German-wearing black dude who still wants to win World War II. Personally, I would have preferred the series didn't return to the Germans in black again for the third time. There are so many other world events they could draw from. Even the dreadful Crystal Skull moved on to the Russians being the new enemy. But like every other series in Hollywood these days, we have to just copy the original bloody stories. Maybe they could have had a story that involved the space race or the Iron Curtain. Or maybe just don't make the film at all. That used to be an option. I like that option. Anyway, we make it back to film current day, 1969 to be precise, and Indiana Jones is alone, about to retire, and is an alcoholic. At least Han Solo wasn't an alco and had Chewie to cuddle up to.
Chewie, we're home.
Yes, old Indy is a depressing sight. A depression that never lifts. An old man on an adventure that he doesn't want to be on, with people that don't want him there.
Give me that back. That was my father's watch.
The paper-thin setup to get Indy on this adventure is linked to the murder of his colleagues. It makes little sense and is just forgotten by the end of the film. In fact, Indy's involvement only helps the Germans. If Indy hadn't gotten involved, Dr. Voller would have not been able to find the Dial of Destiny, and even if he had found it, all the Germans would have died trying to use it. Exactly like what happened in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the Germans would have never found the Ark without Indy getting involved.
They're digging in the wrong place.
And as we saw, even if they did find it on their own, they still would have all died when using the Ark. Just like what happens to all the Germans when they used the dial in the Dial of Destiny story. At least in Raiders, there was a reason for Indy to get involved. He was full of life, and his passion was finding and saving precious artifacts.
I'm sure everything you do for the museum conforms to the International Treaty for the Protection of Antiquities.
In this film, he's depressed, has no interest in going, and doesn't believe in the dial. But he goes anyway because Kathleen Kennedy needs him to go to save her job. Good luck with that. And this is where I have to pause for a sec to explain to the people who are already hitting the keyboards, trying to explain to me the very obvious plot that Indy is depressed because his son died. Yes, keyboard maniacs, I do understand the reason. I'm criticising the decision to make him depressed and the reason for it. Because the amount of people who think if they just explain the bad parts in a bad story, it somehow magically fixes the bad. Like the people criticising it miss some hidden code somehow. Idiots. You know, imagine if Lucasfilm had more than one idea for old white dudes. One of the few good things in Crystal Skull was that they gave Indy a nicely deserved farewell. He was married to the love of his life and had a son that could take over the family business. I mean, it wasn't up there with Riding into the Sunset and Last Crusade, which I think is where we all would have happily stopped, but at least it gave Indy some respect. Now, what if we continued that idea of him being the happy family man in this film? And when we joined him, we found Indy happily married, living the suburban life of neighbours and mowing lawns. And maybe like most older men, he is struggling with the monotony of retired everyday life. Maybe he has an annoying neighbour he has to deal with. Maybe we could take from Harrison Ford's real life and have old Indy crashing planes into golf courses every couple of months.
In Ford's plane, struggling to stay in the air there after engine trouble. Moments later, crash landing on a golf course.
But he is happy with a family knowing that the adventure days are behind him. Then one day Mutt returns needing his father's help. Mutt has continued his father's quest for adventure, but his new mentor has gone missing, and he knows Indy's the only person that can find him, because Mutt's missing mentor is Short Round. Wouldn't Indy risking it all by returning to his old ways that could see him end up dead, never to return to Marion? Wouldn't Indy choosing to leave a life he loves to save an old friend be way more interesting and emotional than lonely old alcoholic goes on a trip with his annoying goddaughter, as a choice slightly better than sitting at home drinking himself to death? By the way, I'm not concrete on Mutt and Indy looking for Short Round. Short Round and Indy looking for Mutt could be better. We'll have a vote on that one.
Indy, I love you! Wake up, Indy!
Now, I would never dare say that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm haven't got an ounce of creativity or originality, but could we sometimes not make older guys complete failures? Back in the day, they didn't have to make Indy's dad a loser, did they? He was an educated man who had lost his wife and carried himself with some pride.
I can't forget how wonderful it was.
Thank you. It was rather wonderful.
Like most men did in that time. You know, living through a couple of world wars and all that. But not Indy, the world-famous archaeologist and college professor, now lives in a cheap dive where he has hippies for neighbours. And no highly paid speaking engagements for him. His own students don't even give a shit. And they enrolled in his class. Now just quickly, don't be like old, sad Indy, watching your life go by. Live like young, attractive Indiana Jones. And take life by the horns and be a success. Get your own adventure moving by getting that great idea you have in front of the world with an amazing website by Squarespace. You may have an incredible product you want to sell. Maybe it's your talents you want to put out to the world. Well, with the Squarespace website, you can sell anything to the world. And with all their new features, it couldn't be easier. Things like Fluid Engine, the next generation website design system from Squarespace that brings the ease and freedom of drag and drop designing. So there's no limit to how good your website can look. They have added custom merch, so you can sell merch directly to your fans. All you have to do is upload your design, and Squarespace will take care of the production, inventory, and shipping. You just have to collect the cash.
I'm rich, bitch!
And one of the newest time-saving features that I enjoy is video collections. Easily organize your video library and showcase your content right on your own website. You can upload a video or just copy in your video's URL and you're done. You can even set up a members area where you can monetize your content right on your own website. That's money straight to you, my friend. No other website builder can give you all of that. Go to squarespace.com/robothead and try Squarespace for free. And then when you're ready to blast off, use the code ROBOTHEAD and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. See the link below. Go to Squarespace today and tell them RobotHead sent you.
Get back!
Now, Indiana Jones films have always been a bit convenient in how clues are found or the timing of baddies turning up. It suits the style of film and also keeps the story cracking along. And the little clues of how to get to the next destination was half the fun. And it was always done with finesse and energy. Clues burnt into a hand, or Indy hitching a ride on a submarine of all things. Far out adventurous fun. In Dial of Destiny, it feels like little thought was given to how clues were found or how each group gets from one destination to the next. Dr. Voller at one stage chooses which country he needs to go to next by seeing Indy's far off boat going left instead of right.
Head west, not east.
Not the most interesting or inventive way to get them to the next destination. Now, on its own, that is a small complaint, but it sums up the feeling of the second half of the film. But apparently this film had massive amount of reshoots, so maybe the interconnecting scenes got lost while they were trying to fix the main parts of the story. And like nearly everything in this film, the action gets worse as the film goes along, which is criminal for a series that has some of the all-time greatest action scenes. It starts off well with the opening train chase. It's not frantic, and the slow pace of the cannon repeatedly going off, slowly destroying the train, reminded me of the tank chase in Last Crusade. Not overhyped and not running 1,000 miles an hour. It was a bit of a surprise to see Dr. Voller alive and well in the future after copping one of the heaviest hits I've ever seen. I know he had 20 years to recover, but it's hard to put minced meat back into human form. It made the pole-hitting scene in Hereditary look tame. Then things start ramping up with the manic tuk-tuk chase, where they try dismally to make Phoebe Waller-Bridge an action star. A chase that includes Helena's ex, who wants to cut her head off. We know how he feels. He could have really improved this movie. And the fastest tuk-tuks in the world. We also get the character Helena telling us how awesome she is, how great her life is, and how beautiful she is. And they're all lies, I tell you. Her life is a mess. She's a thief who is happy to set up Indiana and get him killed. Yes, a guy that's always been nice to her. Several times she sets him up to die.
Sorry, I just told him to shoot you. You're out of your depth, Jonesy. He's the one wanted for murder.
The friend of her father who has done nothing wrong to her. And this, I think, is meant to come across as some cute girl power strength that in reality just makes her psychotic.
I just told him to shoot you.
Helena's only successful relationship is with a pubescent boy who needs someone in his life to teach him how to shave and swim. Now, I'm not sure the story changed during reshoots, but somehow Helena is straight out of college after just finishing her studies, as well as being an international thief auctioneer who has been raising a boy thief for years.
I just graduated in archaeology.
A kid she's raised to be a hairy, moralless, non-swimming thief.
Give me that back. That was my father's watch.
Even when he steals from the divers that are helping them, she just gives him a proud grin. She really couldn't have done a worse job bringing him up.
Those days have come and gone.
The worst action scene is later in the film where Helena rides a motorbike up to a plane in the rain to jump on board while her pubescent companion, who has never flown a plane, follows her in another plane he is piloting. A scene that is hidden in the dark and heavy rain to what I'm guessing is to hide some shoddy looking effects, or it could be just to hide Phoebe Waller-Bridge's physical performance, which would be a wise move, because earlier in the movie we see Phoebe Waller-Bridge running across the New York rooftops. In that scene she looked very uncoordinated and out of breath, and she'd only gone about 5 steps. It was nearly as good as when she had to slowly ride a motorbike up to the camera to look cool, and she had all the confidence of a newborn bird on ice. Nothing like casting a gangly, uncoordinated praying mantis in an action role. You can thank Kathleen Kennedy for that. That was her choice, because she has a real fetish for British brunettes, which is not always a bad choice. Now, the biggest lie in this script is how it's constantly trying to convince the audience that Helena is super attractive. Helena tells us she is beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Men are taken aback by her, and strangers literally stop in the street to stare. Everyone has different tastes. I'm sure in her British upper class, affluent upbringing that included sirs and ladies, the type of people that judge people by the stock they come from, people that thought that these two were a catch. I'm sure in that world she knows so well that she is seen as attractive. No figure, straight up and down, horse face with distinctive markings.
Mo.
She's probably very good stock.
Mole, 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 mole.
I'm telling you, her upbringing was so upper class, she had never heard the word droid before auditioning for Solo, a Star Wars story.
Droid. What's a droid? And then I googled droid, and then nothing much really came up, weirdly, just pictures. There wasn't explicitly it was a robot.
Now, that's as affluent as saying you can't sweat.
Peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
But to many people, more the working class, she is about as attractive as putting a wig on a cat's asshole.
And what sort of research would you do on me?
Mating customs,
Love rituals?
primitive sexual practices.
The need for this film to convince us that this woman would stop men in the street is an ongoing Hollywood trend to appease the narcissists that have to see their average selves in everything, like super heavy catwalk models or tiny leading men.
Yeah.
Now, to continue with the trend of this film getting worse as it goes along, the ending is out there absurd, with Indy and the Germans travelling back in time to 212 BC to witness a Roman battle where they crash a World War II bomber and leave it back in Roman times over 2,000 years ago. Somehow I think that would have affected history. We would have at least heard about it.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
The filmmakers weren't even clever enough to sink the plane in the ocean, which may have removed it from history. But no, to be fair, we don't see much of the outside world. Once Indy returns to 1969, maybe leaving bits of an advanced aircraft back in 212 BC did change the present-day future. People might have been jetting around in flying cars for all we know. We just didn't see them outside Indy's window. Now, there are a lot of Christians in the world, and a lot of people believe in the Bible, the Ten Commandments, and the story of Jesus. So including those spiritual beliefs in an adventure story is a lot of fun and adds a lot of wonder to the story. Voodoo also has a great connection to the old adventure movies and religious beliefs. When you start adding aliens, you're starting to lose me, as it doesn't fit with the spiritual beliefs of the other movies. And it was also poorly done, so that didn't help. But when you get to working time travel, well, let's say removed from reality and beliefs, you may as well have Indiana Jones and the Flat Earthers. And please, for the love of God, Hollywood, stop adding time travel and multiverses to all your franchises. I can't take it anymore.
It's called capitalism.
An innocent guy accidentally makes the time travel journey to Roman times and back. I want to see the movie of him spending his life in a mental ward, because no one will believe his story. We can slot him into the bed next to Bruce Willis and 12 Monkeys.
For all I know, you're crazy as a loon.
They really took the existence of time travel in their stride, where Indy was always pretty excited to share his adventures.
I had it, Marcus. I had it in my hand. It's beautiful, Marcus. I can get it. I got it all figured out.
And I understand he's surprised to see Marion, but you think he might have mentioned to her what just happened to him. But why would he? Because in the end, it was all done for nothing. The discovery of time travel doesn't affect anything or have any meaning. The trip back in time doesn't achieve anything. The doll itself doesn't end with any interesting twist or higher purpose. And we don't get to see any resolution for the murders that started all this. Everything that's happened is just forgotten, because it's more important that they reenact a moment from when they hooked up once before. But no, it wasn't the first time they hooked up, it was another time.
I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it.
Before splitting again, to go on and hook up again, to get Marion pregnant, before splitting it again.
I wrote.
To finally get back again to marry, then just split again after the death of their son. And now getting back together again, for at least the fourth bloody time we know of. They have abandoned each other so many times, I'm starting to think they really shouldn't be together. They're not really the romantic couple this film's trying to portray. Actually, I'm surprised they even remember the elbow kissing moment. They must have it on Blu-ray. Indy's life in this film is horrible. If he got shot during one of the chase scenes where his goddaughter is lecturing him, it would be a mercy killing. And even Indy knows this, because at the end of the film, Indiana sees death as a better option than returning to his own life, which has been made worse by the addition of this bitch.
Sounds quite cool when you put it like that.
He literally begs to be left to die. But he doesn't get that wish because Stick Arms here knocks him out and drags him home to again reunite him with Marion. We already had those two get back together in Crystal Skull. This film rips that reunion apart and kills their kid just to give us a miserable version of them getting back together again. And none of it contributes to the story at all. It's all just another slow, miserable death of a once great franchise.